The pink slip felt like ice in my trembling hands. 15 years at Henderson Real Estate, gone in 5 minutes. My name is Laura Thompson, and I thought losing my job was the worst thing that could happen to me. I was wrong. The morning sunlight streamed through the office windows as my manager, Janet, cleared her throat nervously. Janet, Laura, due to the current economic climate, we're forced to make some difficult decisions. Her voice carried that rehearsed tone of corporate sympathy. Janet, your position is being eliminated effective immediately. The words hit me like a physical blow. Around me, colleagues avoided eye contact, their faces a mixture of relief and guilt. Relief that it wasn't them. Guilt that it was me. I drove home in a daze, the radio news droning about foreclosures and unemployment rates. The numbers felt abstract until they became personal, until they became me. Our Beverly Hills house came into view, its manicured lawn and gleaming facade a monument to the success I'd helped build. Mark's black BMW sat in the driveway, which was unusual for a Tuesday afternoon. I pushed through the front door, my termination letter still clutched in my hand. The house felt different somehow, charged with an energy I couldn't name. Mark emerged from his study, adjusting his tie with the same precision he used for everything. His salt and pepper hair was perfectly styled, his expensive suit wrinkle-free. He looked like success incarnate. "Mark, you're home early." His tone was neutral, businesslike, as if addressing a colleague rather than his wife of 18 years. I held up the letter, my voice barely above a whisper. I got laid off. Mark glanced at the paper, then back at his phone screen. "Mark, well, maybe it's time for a break anyway. You've been pretty stressed lately." The casual dismissal stung more than the job loss itself. 18 years of marriage, and this was his reaction to my career crumbling. No embrace, no words of comfort, just a suggestion that maybe unemployment was what I needed. "Mark, I have a client dinner tonight. Don't wait up." He kissed my cheek with the mechanical precision of routine and walked out. I stood alone in our marble foyer, surrounded by the trappings of success that suddenly felt hollow. That night, I called my best friend Karen, my voice breaking as I explained the day's events. "Karen, honey, I'm so sorry, but Mark's reaction, that's not normal. When Tom lost his job, I held him while he cried. Partners support each other." Her words planted a seed of doubt that would grow into something larger, something dangerous. The following weeks blurred together in a haze of rejection emails and empty interviews. The real estate market had crashed, taking my prospects with it. Mark's late nights became more frequent, his explanations more elaborate. Client meetings that ran past midnight, emergency briefs that required weekend trips, business dinners with names I'd never heard before. I tried to discuss my job search with him, but he seemed perpetually distracted. His phone buzzed constantly with messages he'd answer immediately, stepping away to respond in private. One evening, I suggested we have dinner together, just the two of us. "Mark can't tonight. Big case coming up. You understand?" But I was beginning to understand less and less. The man I'd married had been ambitious, yes, but never dismissive. Driven, but not distant. Success had changed him, or maybe revealed who he'd always been underneath. 3 weeks after my termination, I was organizing Mark's desk drawer, looking for stamps. When I found it, a receipt from Cartier. $5,000 for a diamond necklace. I touched my bare throat, confusion washing over me. I hadn't received any jewelry recently. Not for my birthday. Not for our anniversary. Not for Christmas. When Mark came home that night, I confronted him about the receipt. "Mark, it's for a client's wife. Business expense." His answer came too quickly, too smoothly. "Mark, you know how important it is to maintain relationships in my line of work." But something in his eyes flickered. A tell I'd learned to recognize over 18 years of marriage. He was lying. The next morning, while Mark showered, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text message preview appeared on the locked screen. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Wearing the necklace you bought me, Jay." My blood turned to ice. The shower was still running when I took a photo of the message with my own phone. My hands shook so violently I could barely hold the device steady. Jay. Who was Jay? When Mark emerged, toweling his hair, I was sitting on the edge of our bed. Who's Jessica? Mark froze, the towel suspended mid-motion. Mark, what are you talking about? I showed him the photo of the text message. Mark, Laura, you're being paranoid. Jessica is my paralegal. That text was obviously meant for someone else. But his face had gone pale beneath his tan. Mark, you're going through a difficult time with the job situation. Maybe you should talk to someone. Get some help. The audacity of his response hit me like a slap. He was having an affair, and I needed help. Mark, look, I've been thinking. Maybe we should take a break. Give each other some space to figure things out. The words hung in the air between us like poison. Mark, I'll have my attorney draw up some papers, something fair, enough to get you back on your feet. He was already planning my exit, already calculating how to minimize the damage to his perfectly curated life. That afternoon, I called the one person I knew could help me. David Chen had been Mark's law school roommate before they'd gone their separate ways. David specialized in family law. While Mark had chosen corporate litigation, they'd remained friendly but distant over the years. David, Laura, this is unexpected. How are you holding up? His voice carried genuine concern, a stark contrast to Mark's clinical detachment. I explained everything. The job loss, Mark's behavior, the receipt, the text message. David listened without interruption, his silence speaking volumes. David, I'm sorry you're going through this, but I have to ask, do you want to fight this? The question surprised me. Fight. I'd spent 3 weeks feeling like a victim, unemployed, unwanted, discarded. But David's words sparked something I'd forgotten I possessed. Anger. Pure, righteous anger. Yes, I want to fight. David, good. Because if Mark is hiding assets and having an affair, we can make this very expensive for him. David, but we need proof. Real proof, not just suspicious receipts and text messages. That's when he mentioned Patricia Wells. Patricia was a private investigator who specialized in marital infidelity cases. She was expensive, but according to David, she was worth every penny. Patricia met me at a small cafe in Westwood, her appearance deliberately unremarkable. Mid-50s, graying hair, the kind of person who could blend into any crowd. Patricia, tell me about your husband's schedule. When does he leave? When does he return? Any patterns you've noticed? I recounted Mark's recent behavior, the late nights, the weekend absences. Patricia, most affairs follow predictable patterns. If he's seeing someone, we'll find evidence. She outlined her approach: discreet surveillance, financial investigation, digital forensics if necessary. Patricia, this won't be cheap. Laura, are you prepared for what we might find? I thought about the 18 years I'd invested in our marriage, the career I'd put on hold to support his ambitions, the social events where I'd played the perfect wife, the dreams I'd deferred. I'm prepared. 2 weeks later, Patricia called with an update. Patricia, we need to meet. I have photos. Her voice was professional but tinged with something else. Sympathy. We met at the same cafe, and she slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were photos that shattered what remained of my marriage. Mark and a young woman entering an apartment building. Mark and the same woman at an expensive restaurant. Mark and the woman kissing in the parking garage of his law firm. The woman was stunning. Early 20s, with long blonde hair and the kind of figure that comes from expensive personal trainers. She wore the Cartier necklace in one of the photos. My Cartier necklace, bought with money from accounts I'd helped fund. Patricia. Her name is Jessica Lane. She's a paralegal at Collins & Associates, the firm your husband sometimes collaborates with. Patricia, but that's not all we found. She produced another folder, this one filled with financial documents. Patricia, your husband has been moving money, large sums from your joint accounts into a private account you're not listed on. The numbers made my head spin. $200,000, $400,000, $1 Amounts that would have covered my lost income for years. Amounts that had been funding his affair. Patricia. He's also been paying rent on an apartment in Santa Monica. Lease is in Jessica's name, but the payments come from his private account. I stared at the evidence, my marriage reduced to photographs and bank statements. Patricia. There's something else. I followed him to the apartment yesterday. He was there for 3 hours in the middle of the afternoon. She showed me time-stamped photos of Mark entering and leaving the building. His car parked outside. His lies documented in digital detail. That evening, I confronted Mark armed with irrefutable proof. He was in his study, working on his laptop. When I walked in and placed the photos on his desk, Mark's confident expression crumbled as he saw the images. Mark, Laura, I can explain. Explain what? The affair. The secret apartment. The money you've been stealing from our accounts. My voice was steady despite the rage coursing through my veins. Mark leaned back in his chair, his lawyer's mind already calculating his options. Mark, this doesn't have to get ugly. We can handle this quietly, privately. Mark, you're unemployed. Laura, you need my support. Don't do something you'll regret. The threat was subtle but clear. Fight me and you'll have nothing. But he'd underestimated me. Mark, I'll give you the house and a reasonable settlement, enough to start over somewhere else. Somewhere else? He wanted me gone, erased from his perfect life. I don't want reasonable. Mark, I want everything. His laugh was bitter. Mark, you can't prove anything that would hold up in court. Those photos could be anyone. Mark, and moving money between accounts isn't illegal when it's my money. But David had prepared me for this response. Mark, think about Emma. Do you really want her to see her father destroyed in some vindictive legal battle? The mention of our daughter hit its intended target. Emma was 16, a junior in high school, with college applications looming. She adored her father, saw him as successful and admirable, but she also deserved to know the truth about the man she idolized. Emma deserves to know who her father really is. Mark's face hardened. Mark, if you try to turn her against me, I'll make sure you don't see her again. Mark, I have resources, Laura, connections. I can make your life very difficult. But his threats only strengthened my resolve. The next morning, I filed for divorce. David had prepared a comprehensive petition that detailed Mark's affair, his financial misconduct, and his attempts at intimidation. We requested the house, alimony, and half of all assets, including the money he'd hidden. We also requested an emergency injunction preventing him from moving additional funds. Mark's reaction was swift and vicious. He hired Mitchell & Kane, one of LA's most expensive divorce firms. They immediately filed a counter-petition painting me as an unstable, vindictive woman seeking to destroy a successful man out of spite. They claimed I'd been financially irresponsible, that I'd been struggling with depression and alcohol abuse, that I was unfit to have custody of Emma. None of it was true, but in divorce court, truth was often less important than narrative. The media caught wind of the case when Mark's firm leaked information to their favorite gossip columnist. High-profile LA lawyer faces bitter divorce battle. The article painted Mark as the victim of a woman scorned, a successful professional being brought down by his unstable ex-wife. But David had anticipated this strategy. David, they want to make this public fine. Let's give them a story worth telling. He called a press conference. I stood outside the courthouse, David by my side, as reporters gathered. The morning was bright and clear, the courthouse steps providing a dramatic backdrop. David, my client, Laura Thompson, has been married to attorney Mark Thompson for 18 years. David, during that time, she supported his career, raised their daughter, and contributed significantly to their family's financial success. David, when she lost her job due to the current economic crisis, her husband's response was not support, but betrayal. David presented the evidence methodically. The affair, the secret apartment, the hidden accounts, the financial manipulation. David, Mr. Thompson, used marital assets to fund his extramarital relationship while his wife struggled to find employment. David, this is not a case of a bitter divorce. This is a case of theft, deception, and betrayal. The reporters ate it up. Questions flew. How long has the affair been going on? How much money was diverted? Will there be criminal charges? I answered each question with quiet dignity, refusing to sink to Mark's level of mudslinging. The coverage was immediate and brutal. Lawyer's wife exposes affair and financial fraud. Mark Thompson, betrayer or betrayed. Mark's law firm distanced themselves from him within hours. His clients began requesting new representation. His reputation, built over decades, crumbled in a single news cycle. But the real bombshell came when Jessica Lane agreed to an interview. She appeared on a local morning show, tears streaming down her face. Jessica. Mark told me he was separated, that his wife was unstable and had left him. Jessica. He said the divorce was just a formality, that we could be together once it was finalized. Her voice broke as she continued. Jessica. I never would have gotten involved if I'd known the truth. I'm not a home wrecker. Jessica. He made me promises, said he'd leave his wife, said I was the love of his life. She showed the interviewer the Cartier necklace. Jessica. He said this was proof of his love. I had no idea it was bought with his wife's money. The interview went viral. Jessica Lane trended on social media. Comments ranged from sympathetic to scathing. Poor girl was manipulated by a predator. She knew he was married. Men like Mark Thompson destroy lives. The court proceedings began 2 months later. The courthouse was packed with reporters and curious onlookers. Mark sat with his expensive legal team, his face a mask of professional composure. But I could see the stress in the tight lines around his eyes, the weight loss, the slight tremor in his hands. David presented our case methodically, bank records showing the diverted funds, photos documenting the affair, email exchanges between Mark and Jessica that proved premeditation. Mark's lawyers tried to discredit the evidence. They claimed the photos were taken without consent, that the financial transfers were legitimate business expenses, that I was a woman scorned seeking revenge. But their arguments fell apart when Emma took the stand. Our daughter, now 17, had grown up considerably over the past year. She'd overheard conversations, seen the evidence, drawn her own conclusions. Emma, my father lied to me. He told me my mother was being unreasonable. Her voice was steady, mature beyond her years. Emma, but I saw the pictures. I saw the bank statements. My father was stealing money and lying about it. Emma, my mother worked hard to support our family. She deserved better than this. Mark's face crumpled as his daughter testified against him. The golden child he'd tried to turn into an ally had chosen truth over loyalty. The judge's ruling was swift and comprehensive. Judge Morrison, the evidence clearly shows a pattern of financial misconduct and marital betrayal. Judge Morrison, Mr. Thompson diverted marital assets to fund an extramarital affair while his wife faced unemployment. Judge Morrison, this court awards Mrs. Thompson the family home, 60% of all marital assets, and substantial alimony. Judge Morrison, furthermore, Mr. Thompson will pay all legal fees and court costs. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed to file their stories. Mark's lawyers huddled around him, their faces grim. I sat quietly, feeling not triumph but exhaustion. The victory felt hollow after everything I'd lost. But David squeezed my shoulder. David, you did it. Laura, you got justice. Outside the courthouse, I faced the cameras one final time. Reporter Mrs. Thompson, how do you feel about the judge's decision? I thought carefully before answering. I feel vindicated, but mostly I feel free. Reporter, what's next for you? I smiled, thinking about the plans I'd been forming. I'm starting over, building something new, something honest. The settlement gave me the financial freedom to pursue a dream I'd deferred for years. I opened a consulting firm helping people navigate real estate transactions during economic hardship, victims of the recession, families facing foreclosure, people like me who'd lost everything and needed to rebuild. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mark's betrayal had freed me to become who I was always meant to be. Emma moved in with me permanently. She was accepted to Stanford with early admission, her college fund intact despite Mark's attempts to raid it. Mark's law career never recovered. The scandal followed him everywhere. Clients wouldn't hire him. Firms wouldn't interview him. He ended up working for a small practice in the Valley, handling minor cases for a fraction of his former salary. Jessica disappeared from the public eye. I heard she moved back to her hometown in Ohio. Sometimes I wondered if she understood the role she'd played, whether she felt guilty or simply unlucky. Mostly, I tried not to think about her at all. A year after the divorce, I ran into Mark at Emma's high school graduation. He looked older, diminished somehow. His expensive suits had been replaced by off-the-rack alternatives. His confident swagger was gone. Mark Laura. His voice was quiet, almost hesitant. Mark, I wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything. I looked at him, this man I'd once loved, this stranger who'd shared my bed for 18 years. I'm not the one you should apologize to. Mark, apologize to Emma. Apologize to yourself. He nodded, understanding. Mark, are you happy? The question surprised me. Was I happy? I thought about my new business, the clients I was helping, the independence I'd found, the relationship I was slowly building with Emma, the peace that came from living honestly. Yes, I think I am. Mark smiled sadly. Mark, I'm glad. You deserve that. He walked away, and I watched him go, not with anger anymore, not with hatred, but with something approaching pity. He'd traded everything real for something false. And in the end, he'd lost both. 2 years later, my business was thriving. I'd helped hundreds of families navigate the recession's aftermath. Some kept their homes. Others found new ones. All of them found hope. Emma was excelling at Stanford, studying economics with plans to help families like ours. She called me every Sunday, our relationship stronger than it had ever been. Karen remained my closest friend, celebrating every victory and supporting me through every setback. I'd even started dating again. Nothing serious, nothing rushed, but it felt good to know I was capable of trusting again, of opening my heart to possibility. One evening, as I reviewed client files in my home office, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The woman who'd held that pink slip 3 years ago was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who understood that betrayal could be a beginning, not an ending. That justice wasn't always immediate, but it was always worth fighting for. My phone buzzed with a text from a potential client, a woman whose husband had emptied their accounts and disappeared. She needed help. She needed hope. She needed someone who understood. I smiled and typed back immediately. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll figure this out together. Because that's what survivors do. We lift each other up. We share our strength. We turn our pain into purpose. Mark had tried to leave me with nothing. Instead, he'd given me everything. A new life, a new purpose, a new understanding of my own worth. I was no longer Mark Thompson's wife. I was Laura Thompson, and that was more than enough. The end. If you've experienced betrayal, if you've felt powerless, remember that your story isn't over. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives become the catalyst for our greatest transformations. I'd love to hear your own stories of overcoming adversity in the comments below. Your experience might inspire someone else who needs to hear that survival is possible. And if you want to hear more stories about finding strength in the darkest moments, subscribe for new content that explores the power of resilience and the courage to start over. Remember, you're stronger than you know.